It's time for another installment of the Holistic Happy Hour with Devoya and Jason. The Holistic Happy Hour is dedicated to addressing the health and mental wellness of underserved communities of color. Join hosts Devoya and Jason as they quiz, question, and converse with cultural brokers, complementary healers, and other wellness providers and community folks.
Our guest today is Lao cultural broker Lysing Prathamavong of Fresno, California. I said it right. Yes, our guest today is Lao cultural broker Lysing Prathamavong of Fresno, California. I was going to write out a whole bio for you, Lysing, but I feel like we'll get into that during this podcast. Is that okay with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, welcome to the show. As we discussed, it's happy hour, so you can hear a little clinking of the glass. Do you have a libation that you're currently indulging in that's going to sustain?
I sure do.
Okay, all right. I think we're in good shape then. So, as you know, we call this program A Libation for Your Soul. And when we spoke earlier about your joining us here on the show today, you took that definition and you did a little bit of research and you came up with some cultural responses to that, some things I hadn't thought of. So how about, in order to get this started, you introduce yourself, tell the listeners a little bit about you, and then let's talk a little bit about your research into the terminology of libation and how that fits within the Lao culture. Does that seem like a good start?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Devoya. I am so excited to be on this holistic happy hour, and I was really looking forward to being here tonight. And I am one out of the 8 cultural brokers that work at the Holistic Center, as Devoya had mentioned. Devoya is actually our trainer, and our goal is to bring workshop, right, activities, and to be aware of our community, and to bring happiness to the people that we connect to, and to understand our background, and to also identify and our relationship with the folks that we come in contact with. So I am the Lao cultural broker that works there. And when she talked about libation, I was like, what's libation? A totally different terminology that I've never heard for my culture, for Laos. I'm from Laos. I've been here 40 years.
Really?
So yes, and I have a lot of learning to do about my own culture. I left my country when I was 8 years old, and I was in the refugee camp, and I got here when I was 10. I started 4th grade. So assimilating was a big part of who I am. So going back and fetching that story for me is very, very rewarding. It keeps me grounded, and it really, truly makes me who I am. I'm happier. My mental health, my way of thinking has changed working at the Holistic Center.
Right.
So libation in my culture, really, we practice that quite often.
Mm-hmm.
It's practiced during marriage ceremonies to validate the marriages, right? And of course,
and how do you do it in the marriage cultures? What do you
we utilize water, holy water. So that could be added with incense, rose, lavender, sometimes sparkle with, like little pieces of gold, to add more of a blessing. Life should be as beautiful as flowers, as rich as gold. It should symbolize all the beautiful things that we have, in our world, right? So a couple would be, they would sit down, and our elders, our respected elders, would mix that holy water, and we have our guests during the wedding that would come and give them the blessings, and then also pour the holy water on their palms, both palms of the couple.
Palms up,
Um, palms up to
palms up.
receive.
To
To
as is it like in the shape of a cup to receive the libation?
Yes, to
Oh, I love
receive the
it.
libation. Exactly. So that's one practice. The other practice is when our mental health isn't well. I mean, when we're not feeling well and we feel down, our luck isn't going so well. We believe in practicing libation again, right? We go to the temple. We ask our elders to bless us with water, holy water again, and that holy water can be mixed with perfumes, flowers, anything. So then what happens that is they pour it on top of our head,
Mm-hmm.
as a sign of warding off that evil spirit, um, asking for good wishes and
And
good
this is just
health.
droplets or
Droplets,
just droplets
droplets
of,
of water.
okay.
Hmm.
So that
And
purification sort of ceremonial moment.
yes, 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 purification, absolutely. Um, and then the other practice or ritual we have is we give our ancestors liquor, whatever they like to drink. If you remember that Grandpa loved uh, vodka or he loves a beer, we would every year bring out a plate of food, a tray of food that would also include alcohol in there, and then we pour water to the ground, asking our ancestors to come and feast on our offering, and asking them for them to be reborn, and also for them to be in good spirit, and letting them know and communicating with them, letting them know how our lives has been, how much they've touched us, and how much we miss their presence, but at the same time we're happy that they're watching over us, and we
Isn't
feel their
that
presence.
similar to Day of the Dead, like the altar sort of? Is
Yes,
I can't remember completely, but there sounds like there's some similarities there as far
I
as how
see
you.
it. I see it when we're at the holistic center, and I noticed that the ladies would practice, and they would put things out there with pictures and cigarettes or whatever, that they have the memory of their ancestors
Mm-hmm.
that they like. But I don't really understand it myself. I from Today I'm talking about my personal experience and what I've
Right.
learned from the elders in my community and what they have taught me. Again, vocabulary and terminology. Sometimes I have to literally translate that because, as you can imagine, coming to America at age 10, starting fourth grade, having to be in an ESL class for so many, English as a second language class for so many years, it takes time for me to to immediately understand certain words. So I
Right.
have to translate that. But I do understand a lot of the similarity that we have in our culture. We all do. It's amazing.
It is.
It's just
It's truly amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll have some
Um,
folks on from different cultures to talk about libations, and that's why I thought, the first question should be around that because I really felt like you liked the word, even though it didn't immediately reach
mm-mm,
you. I think
mm-hmm.
I think once you started to do the research, if I'm not mistaken, you started to feel some connection to it.
Yeah, it's very meaningful, and it's like the cross culture workshop that I had last month. We talked about our water celebration, right? We talked
Hmm.
about our new year. Why do we do that? Why do we sprinkle water on folks? Why do we bless our children and our friends with the water? Why do we celebrate liquor, or why do we celebrate? It's a whole reborn a rebirth of who we are. Every
Right.
time we pour, every time we connect ourselves to that. It's a new beginning, really. It represents a whole new beginning.
I like it. I like it. It's such a great way to start it. So, we talked a little bit about being a cultural broker at the Holistic Center. And for folks that have not listened to the show previously, um, the Holistic Center resides here in Fresno, California. It's a um, program of Fresno County. Well, it's a project of Fresno County Behavioral Health through the Mental Health Service Act, Prop 63, and we're operated by the Fresno Center. So we are tasked with helping individuals in underserved communities live a full life, mind, body, spirit. And we know that there's such a strong stigma associated with mental health and wellness in communities of color. And so um, when asked to be, to apply for a position, you are instantly told what that entails, and it seems magical. You want me to do what? You want me to work with my own community in dispelling some of the myths that are associated with mental health. That can't that 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 can't be a real job, but it is a real job. And the term for what we do is a cultural broker. Um, what brought you to the Holistic Center initially? What was the draw? Had you heard of it previously? Were you interested in mental health? Because we're going to get there eventually as to how that happens for all of us. But for you individually, as a Lao woman living in the Central Valley, did you know there was a job that could help folks in your community empower those folks to live better mind, body, spirit?
You know, no, I didn't know about the program, nor I didn't know how wonderful our job could be. Um, but I know that working as an interpreter for the Lao community, I
Mm-hmm.
know that there's a lot of needs for these type of services, um, for a holistic approach, for a different healing practice. We know that taking a pain pill isn't going to help. We practice other things to help us mentally and spiritually. Like I know that if I was hurting right now, I'm not just going to take a Tylenol. I have three different types of medication that is ordered from Laos, and then
Uh-huh.
I also, well, I can't go without Vicks, but I also have
And
Vicks,
who can go without Vicks? Tell me.
right? But I have these Tiger Bombs.
I
I
use Tiger
have
Balm.
these, yes, and then I also have these um, aloe plant that is infused with other herbal medicine that is shipped from Thailand to here. So I
And that's
know
an
that,
example. An example. I'm sorry to cut you off. That's
yes, yes,
what you're talking about. Is yes, we know that medications don't always fulfill all of the ailments that we do have, and there are other things we can do to subsidize that. Complementary alternatives. Complementary healing in general, and so the aloe plant we know is used across the globe for different things, burns, um, digestive issues, various things. And so you're just practicing what so many other folks do on a daily basis, but might not have the terminology for that. And that's commendable. You recognize that, yes, sometimes I do need to take a Tylenol, but there are also other approaches that I can do to accompany that. Meditation, maybe acupuncture, acupressure, all those different things. And I like that you have products you know, that we've used as well for years.
for our Western, yeah, I have Western medication ointment, and then I also have my traditional ointments as well too. And how I'm connected with the holistic at the beginning was I did my interpreting job, and I interpreted for a lot, actually lots of clients that was needing mental health, and
Uh-huh.
they would go into a group setting, and they're trying to apply for Social Security, their disability benefits.
Mm-hmm.
They're not able to find a job. They have PTSD. You know, they're hurting about their children and them not being able to communicate, that generation gap, that first, second, and Generation X gap. Um, and I heard there was a position that was opening up at the Holistic Center, and I was sending clients to get the services at the Fresno Center,
Mm-hmm.
and I was approached by their old
Former.
Former, excuse me. See, I'm telling you, my English is good, but
No,
sometimes
it's not about English. I'm just, I just thought we love Lou. We don't want to think of him as old. He's our former director.
Yeah, our former director, and he says, "Hey, I have a position open, and you would be perfect for the job." I go, "Oh wow, I'm scared. What am I supposed to do?" And then he just said, "Just be yourself. Find your culture, and you just be yourself. Share what you know." And I think to myself, I go, "Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to reconnect with my community."
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have gone so far, but back in the back end, I was still trying to find out who I am. How do I relate to my mom, my dad? How do I relate to my aunt? And then I have all these other aunts and uncles that we call, but they're not really blood related or anything like that. We call them aunts and uncles.
We do that too.
Yeah. So they would come and take our class. I started my first class over at the Holistic Center was my Lao empowerment class, or it was originally was called Mada Mada. It means come in Lao, right? We usually when we invite people to eat, we go Mada Mada, or they even made a rap song. They made a rap song out of that term. I gotta send it over to you, Devoya.
Yeah, do that.
I will. You're gonna be like, oh, I know how to speak Lao just from one song. So that's how I got myself in the door, and our program director Christina Alejo offered me the position, and from there on, I started learning a lot more, and then being able to translate how it's related to mental health, because everything we do is related to mental health. Empowering me, then I'm able to empower others, and then my community. There was such a great need. We had the first class I ever held at the Holistic Center. We had over 23 that participated, and they would bring lunch, they would bring drinks, water and sodas, by the way, not liquor or anything like that. But we talked about what's going on with our daily life. They shared with me their ways of doing things. They would bring different types of vegetables, and we would share, and we talk about the benefits of those veggies. And we've just been friends. They've been from day one of who I am as a culture broker, as a community.
Been able to coalesce a Lao community within the work that you do.
Absolutely, yeah, and they're still connected. I still have them on my list of unique client list. I still do a wellness check on them. They suffered a lot. They suffered a lot. We can share that a lot of us, our generation, our previous generation, there's a lot of love and similarity, so many aspects,
Do you think, just out of curiosity, the folks, so you said at that first workshop that you presented, do you think that folks came out of curiosity, necessity, or a little bit of both?
I'm going to say a little bit of both. It helped them connect with other women, other folks that would be there. We laughed. Occasionally we cried. Mm-hmm. Things were spoken in our language.
That has to be a big element, because are there other, I do know of other organizations locally that assist, various communities, but are there organizations where folks, do you feel, where you can be explicit about what's happening to you personally in a way that allows you to be referred to others, maybe to seek some additional, mental health support?
I definitely. Ours is more of a I would refer them to Healing Hope, which is another counseling agency, and I also would refer them to the Living Well Center. We have a person, our counselor there speaks Lao, but a lot of times they would rather come to the holistic and, of course, work with us because we're so diverse. When we're able to speak our language and connect in a voice, in a mannerism that they're used
To be yourself.
to be exactly, and they're more comfortable to share, and I'm able to help them so much better, and they're able to open up a lot more. When they go into a counseling office, they still need an interpreter. So now you're talking with a counselor, an interpreter that they can't see over the phone or in person there, and it's kind of difficult to share.
They feel that connection.
And to feel that connection, and to walk out feeling like you're well or you're better today.
Right.
I could do this, and these are things that I can work on and I could focus on. And then the funny thing is the way we approach our conversation, it's a very market, like open air market type of conversation, because a lot of folks in my country back in the old days, they didn't get an opportunity to go to school.
Right.
And so when they're talking, instead of telling you turn left and then you'll see Cole, or then you'll see Del Mar Street or way. You don't say that in my language. You say you're going to have to turn left. There's a McDonald's right there. Remember that McDonald's. And then you're going to have to go straight down until you see that post office. Then when you see that post office and there's a big red pole, then you just keep going, and then
landmarks.
Landmarks, and
which
so we
a lot of folks utilize. Yeah. Yeah. So in continuing that sort of conversation, we recently shared something on our social media page about Laos. And the outcome has just been an outpouring of questions, pride, cultural sharing. And for those that do not follow us on Facebook, I highly suggest you do that. You just go on Facebook. It's the Holistic Cultural Education Wellness Center. And the imagery is something that I borrowed from you a few years back. And all it is the depiction of the word Laos, and tells you what that is. And then it's a little graphic of the country and its placement. And I think the imagery and the fact that it's also very easily to understand. These are the people, these are the products, this is the language sort of conversation. Can you kind of maybe shed some light on why that is the most shared, the most viewed, and the most commented on thing so far on our page for 2020? It's really amazing that it's close to 150 people sharing it that I can see from backdoor. There may be more, once we get down into the real analytics. But it's interesting how it's resonated, not just within the Lao community, other communities too, because I have a strong suspicion that it's not comfortable for folks to ask someone, hey, when I refer to your language, should I say it's Lao or Laotian? Because I'll tell you, as your friends, even I wasn't sure, because I've had folks tell me one or the other, and I just never took the time out to ask you personally. But we should do that. Those are the things that we're tasked to do, I think, at a place like the Cultural Center. So can you kind of share some insight as to what you think it was about that made so many people interested, and how we can continue to get folks informed?
Thank you, Devoya. I just think that with your mindfulness and with your experience, from your background, and being our trainer. Thank you for being mindful of the things that you share, and for taking an interest in my ethnic group. So in Laos, we have so many different tribal members. We have the highland, the lowland, and then you have the middle land, right? And everybody there, we're very shy. We speak different languages, but we're all from Laos.
Right.
As you shared, Lao is an ethnicity, right? Laos is the country. I'm flying to Laos for vacation in 2026 or something.
Right.
And I'm a Laotian, and that's all things from Laos and all folks from Laos. So in Fresno County, we have a huge population of Laotian, but we also have a huge population of Lao and Hmong. So those are two different types of folks that are Laotian, right? So when you look at our census, that's why it's important for us to mark Lao and census. Right. Please identify yourself, because right. That's part of the problem, is because we weren't identified, and that's
if you're not identified, you don't exist.
We don't exist, exactly. Right. So when we identify as Laotian, well, what ethnic group are you? I mean, there are so many different ethnic groups, and that's why census is so important, and we have to make sure that we fill that out for our community and help them, right. So that they make sure to put Lao if right. you are Lao from Laos, and then you're Laotian. And as you know, President Obama back in 2016 gave us a huge funding. I can't remember how much he gave us, but he helped us clean the bombs that was left behind during after the war, after the Vietnam War. And it wasn't really talked about, but I know that another organization works closely with the cleanup of the bomb back in our country.
And they're continuing?
It's still continuing.
Wow.
And the money,
much. Mm-hmm,
it's that much.
Well, it's the most. That it requires that much cleanup because it's that serious.
Yes, and you still have folks that kind of stepped on the bomb that was left behind there, that came to America and has lost his legs, and he would tell you stories about how he went farming, because this is out in the open field, and they have nightmares, and then they have what do you call it, that tonight PTSD, the ear ringing. It just continues.
Is that tinnitus?
Tinnitus, yeah, continues to ring. It continues to ring, and they find certain ways to practice, the pulling or the plugging and the coughing, or the holistic way of practicing
to eliminate that pressure.
Yes.
In the ear, so that they can hear again. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I think there was a huge interest because we're really never talked about. A lot of folks don't know who the Lao folks are.
Right.
We're not, and I don't know if this is something that we could talk about, but there are certain cases that we had in the 80s and 90s that was horrific. But there was nobody to advocate, for that Lao boy or that Lao family, or for center. We have other folks involved that believe in our community, that believes in helping and advocating and practicing. We're able to appreciate organization that recognize Lao folks.
You feel seen. You feel seen, and that's an important component in change. Is to
absolutely
feel like someone not only recognizes the issue, but they see it for what it is, and listen to people about what they need, not dictating but listening. What are things that you need in order to feel safe, in order to feel empowered, in order to continue? And so I think it's important that you make that distinction, and you have. And you are right. I think regionally, California is a lot different than a lot of states. When I have folks come out here to visit me, if they're from the South, they don't have a huge population outside of Black and white. So seeing other people, you do get the opportunity to explain, well, let me tell you this story. Because we live here. So we know about the secret war. It ain't a secret to us, but it might be to someone else. And we need these opportunities and moments like this to discuss Hmong Americans, to discuss the Lao community, to discuss the Punjabi community, all these different fractions of our community that lives here in the Central Valley who don't necessarily get to have those conversations. And so I'm so glad that you're here today and so open about all of this, because these are the things that we want to help people to normalize them so we can have these questions, which kind of brings me very close to my next question. And if you don't feel comfortable answering this, please feel free to say, let's just move on. Do you ever recall a moment as a young woman being exposed to something that you felt like this person's not well mentally? Maybe you don't know the language, or maybe you don't know the signs, but you know something's not right. And I'll give you like an example. So in my family, we didn't grow up talking about mental health or mental wellness. If somebody was a little different, that's what they said. Oh, they special, or they're different. And then when you get older, you recognize, oh, they take a lot of medications, or they don't go to family gatherings, or they're always quiet. And you start to recognize over time the difference that they need is mental health. But nobody uses, I may have heard the word depression growing up, but I never heard the word anxiety. I never heard the term PTSD. I never heard the term bipolar disorder, things like that. So as a young woman, when do you think it clicked that somebody, may or may not need additional help? And then as a cultural broker, it clicked like that's what that was about.
I'm okay to answer that. It's a stigma in our culture. I have an uncle that lives in France right now, and I remember as a 13-year-old, he came to visit. It's very moody, off and on, and my mom didn't know how to handle him visiting us and his depression. He was going through a depression. He was going through divorce. He left France to come and visit us. In America here, he was going through his PTSD. He was growing. When they were growing up, they didn't have a lot of. They didn't have much in their life, right? They're siblings, and I remember my mom would call him Piba. I mean, that basically means crazy. We don't have words for depression. We don't have words for PTSD. We don't have words for bipolar. Everybody's crazy. That's only one word.
Phrase. That's an American catch-all phrase too. You know that just from the work that we do. People use crazy so casually that it, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up sometimes, because I can't. But it is really a catch-all for a lot of communities, unfortunately.
It's very, very sad, and we really don't open up. We hold on to everything, and we hide that from our community because we're embarrassed by it. We think it's a devil's work. Our ancestors don't like him or her. Karma, we don't understand depression. You can't be depressed. You can't cry because that's a sign of weakness.
Oh.
Anyway, he had to go back home because he was really depressed, and he needed medication. His ex-wife, who they ended up getting a divorce and all that stuff, still cared for him because he was a really good person. Had pleaded with him to come back, and that he was going through some stuff back there too. And my mom couldn't handle his bipolarism, and he'll cry for no reason. And
girl, I understand.
Yeah, and he'll sit there, and he'll be talking about the war that had happened, and just talking about the past constantly. And we just call him Piba, and I felt really bad because there was just not a table that we can't sit there and talk about it.
Okay.
And that was my first experience understanding the different terminologies of why people are the way they are, and being delusional, because it's a disease, it's a sickness, it's something that we can control after we know, because it's not contagious, and we act like it was so contagious, like his depression was gonna rub off me, to me, and it wasn't that at all. And growing up, I do notice that my community would hide people that have mental illness. Growing up, we don't talk about it because we feel like it's karma, it's bad, it's contagious.
Does it bring shame?
Definitely shame, because there was something you did. Your whole family did something to receive
Right.
that. That's a devil's work. You better make sure you go and get cleansed and start practicing, libation of some sort. So yeah, that was my.
Lysing, how comfortable are you also with speaking to your elders about your community work? Because in all of our cultures, the respect for our elders is key. It's you know it's the barometer for all things. And so, in discussing the work that you do and how mental health and wellness is important, um, you just mentioned that some of the terminology you just became comfortable with. Do you change that terminology when you're speaking to elders? Is it best to lie down a framework and hope that they come, or do you do the opposite and don't tell them anything and hope they're okay with it?
I have to speak with respect to how they're accustomed to. When I speak with you or other folks, I look at you in your eyes. It's part of communication. I speak frankly with you, and I voice my opinion. When I speak to the elders in my community, they become the higher ranking. They are uncle, they are aunts, they are grandma or grandpa. I don't look at them in their eyes. I don't use my Western approach. The way I sit, my body language is also different. Even when I'm serving them, I'm doing their paperwork or filling things out for them or asking them to come to our support group. I let them lead. I let them lead. I don't lead it because it's important that they feel like this is their safe spot. I feel I want them to feel like I'm humble to be able to serve them, and that they
get that wisdom from them as well.
Get wisdom, exactly. Because they feel that urgency to run to my office at times with no appointments, I'm still gonna serve them. And because it's a cultural thing, for them, appointment is disrespectful. In so many ways, and sometimes they don't even stop at the front desk.
I know,
I'm straight to my office.
And with such tact, though. You always greet them warmly, and you make sure that they're taken care of. But yes, I have seen the sense of urgency on their part, and you get a little
which is 30
overwhelmed.
days. Yeah, which is 30 days. You have 30 days to reply. But to them, it's an urgency.
Because they're
So,
elders. I feel that way sometimes. I get it. You
and
think of
and
all the things that could go wrong in those 30 days. You got to get it done right now. You know? Yeah.
but I'm able to gain their trust, and they're able to open up to me, and we're able to connect, and work together, and bringing awareness, and then linking them to resources,
Hmm.
and being able to explain to them their process, and not letting them feel fearful, um, that it's official office, that they're going to be in trouble.
Yes.
That's a lot of fear.
Yes.
Oh, are they going to take away my permanent resident card?
Right.
If I do this, are they going to shut off my EBT card because I have somebody living in my house, or if I, visiting for a week, if I tell them that I'm depressed, if I tell them that certain days I can't function, and I just go out and sit in my backyard and water my lawn, is the city going to come and shut the water down because I'm watering in the daytime, or
Yeah.
just certain
I
things like
understand
that.
all of those. How good do you feel not only being able to say none of those things are going to happen, but also that I'm going to be able to do all of this for free for you? How good
it's
does
it's
that
a
make you feel?
I come home
And
every
how good does
day.
that make them feel? I mean, it
it,
doesn't have to be a feel good moment, but it's important to note that in a country that has so many resources, oftentimes marginalized people still have to fight to get the bare minimum, so that we're in a position not only to provide services for underserved communities, but not to charge them one single dime for any of it really is such an accomplishment. And I marvel at that often. And I love to see elders who feel you can that sigh of relief. It's universal. It holds nothing but promise that you can help someone in those moments. It's tantamount to just making everything okay.
they make my life better. My job really completes me because I'm able to feel, and I am able to see how much their life has changed, because my life also changed, and we
Right.
grow together. And they have my phone number, on speed dial if there's anything, and we talk about suicide sometimes in our support group. And a couple of times they're like, oh, I feel like killing myself. You know, why are these kids the way they are? Why do they not come and see me? Why is it so important for them to move out of the house, and be on their own? Am I that much of a burden to them? You know, I don't want to go and live in a convalescent home. They're going to feed me, American food. I don't want
Well, that's
American
true.
food.
They will. Don't you send them people at all. Don't you send your elders to no convalescent home, because that is exactly what they will do.
And but the good thing is, like, you hear all of that, and with folks that believe in Buddhism, right?
Hmm.
um, it's a sin to kill yourself, and they're fearful of that. It's taught you can't kill yourself, and no matter how much of a struggle you go through, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, you have to reach out for that support. You have
You
to accept that you can't do it all by yourself. And there are organizations or individuals such as yourself who will go that extra mile, and we want those folks to be able to access the information. Um, so that's why it's important to have folks like you on board.
but it's also important for folks to look alike in different organizations
Yes,
too.
you want that representation so that you feel that instant. We were talking about the sigh of relief, because sometimes the mere fact that you don't have to explain to someone your circumstances because you feel they have that lived experience because you are both of that same gender, you're both of that same culture, is so important. I suffer from that myself. We all need, you know, that moment where we feel understood and not othered. And so to have, you know, 8 cultural brokers, each from a different community, that we can have folks sit and speak with, makes it less bureaucratic, in my opinion, than most institutions. You know, especially folks that aren't necessarily coming for their mental wellness. They are, they just don't know that until we have that conversation, until we come up with a plan, decide on some goals, you know, because it's all intertwined. If I don't have food, I'm probably not doing well in other places also. Let's talk about all of it, and let's get you the things that you need in order to then focus on that mental health component as well.
And Holistic Center is good at what we do. You know, we represent our community. I feel like I've served 170 individual, and I'm saying individual because it's family members that would come and seek services as well, and I would refer them or link them to different sources from for the past 4.5 years that I've been at the Holistic Center. But the client that would come to my support group for the Samaki group, which is a unity. Samaki means unity in my language, Samaki, and in English it's unity. But there's about, the max that I have is probably about 24 or 25 that would be there. And then I have my Lao Empowerment group, which is between 10 to 12 to 15 folks. And if I add all the students and the generation, you know, X that would come in, we serve close to about 300 or more. And I'm saying they don't leave.
Right.
It's a going.
They're in it for the long haul.
Yes, they're in it, and
that's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Those 300 people tell their friends and family, and that's how we gain community traction, and that's how we can do this word of mouth work, because it very much is a lot of word of mouth. But I think we're doing all that we can do currently to continue to help those folks, even though it's virtual now, and we know we have a vast number of elders that we support, as well as folks that may or may not speak English, but we're trying all these different methods to make sure that everybody feels supported during this time. And so I thought it was important to have some loud representation in here tonight to talk about that. As we're winding down, you know, I kid you a lot about your vocal prowess, because you really, when you feel good, we all know it. You just start singing. What song, because we were talking about music therapy earlier in a meeting today, what song, Lysing, lifts you up and makes you hold your head high and motivates you to continue to do this work?
Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger.
And you know, it's just kind of like, I'm wounded, but I'm getting up. I'm wounded, but I could do this, you know.
I'm hit, but I got it. Yeah.
So that is my theme song, where when I am feeling down, that's the song that I go to. When I feel great, when I feel like, oh my gosh, I made it. I feel like Rocky, you know. I'm like, yes, I just won this round, you know, and the song comes on again. Yes, and the song comes on again. So, or when I have a successful workshop, or I influence somebody, or, you know, I empowered somebody in their mind, their spirit, their body, their anything. That song comes on in my head.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
I think everybody should have their own internal. There are certain things that we can do to help mitigate that. There are places we can suggest. There are practices we can do together. There are so many different things. And being in a position to be able to share that with our communities who have often been othered and on the fray and not comfortable going to a yoga workshop or going, you know, to a lecture. I want to demystify all of that, and you all help to do that on a daily basis. And I just want to thank you so much for the work that you do, especially for elders. I have a soft spot for all the folks that have, you know, done all the work that they've done so that we could all be here and have these conversations and try and figure this out. Because without them, I don't know what we would be doing right now. Because as awful as it feels, it can't be even a fragment of what our elders have to deal with. And that's what keeps me moving too.
I just want to say I am thankful that I'm able to do what I do at work too. The linguistic approach, similarity. I really urge those leaders, in different organizations. If you're serving the community, we look at your community. Look at the community that you work in and that you live in.
Right.
Have somebody that looks like somebody that you are serving.
Right.
Because I know that my folks won't go, to a place that they don't feel connected or are the same as them.
Or welcome.
They're not.
Just say it.
Or welcome.
Feel welcomed. Some of us don't feel welcomed in certain places.
Yeah.
And that's,
Absolutely. And be patient. And be patient. Be patient with your elders. Be patient with your staff. Be patient with your coworkers. Like I shared, with you earlier, if you guys are listening to this, is that I don't know when I started learning how to speak English. And I've been here 40 years. My accent might sound like I'm some white girl from, Fountain Valley or Huntington Beach. But, like Valley girl, but I'm Lysing, I love sticky rice. I love pho. I love different types of song. I hear the drum of my, from the elders at the temple where they're drumming and they were starting our parade, and my heart just melts, and I feel grounded, and and then I listen to Bob Marley, and it makes me feel like, oh my goodness, and I listen to, like I said, my favorite theme song, Eye of the Tiger. I just be patient, accept our differences, and learn from one another, because I get to learn from my elders and the people that I serve. Right. They make me whole, and I make them whole. We all need each other. We coexist. So
that was that was just a perfect ending to just a really amazing conversation. I know I promised you that it would be short and sweet. It went a little longer than that, but I think we needed to cover these things. And I do hope that if we continue to do this podcast, that you will come back again and bring an elder maybe, and maybe do some, some cross-cultural learning with our listeners also. If that seems like something, think about it. You don't have to answer right now, but I want to say with an open heart that I really appreciate you taking the time out to be this candid and to share these things with our listeners, because I know that these things are helpful. And I love you to pieces. Thank you for being here with us this evening.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
So you all.
Thank you for listening to the Holistic Happy Hour.